And joining us now from our nation's capital is One America's Jack Posobiec, who recently survived several days undercover in the Chaz or the Chop, whatever we're calling it now, Jack. But for everybody who's been following this scene, it seems like there's a little bit of different narratives depending on what media outlet you watch. So I'll ask you, you were there for 72 hours, you were on the ground, you were sharing your videos. What was it like inside that area?
Well, Alex, what we saw on the ground was really something of a chimera situation. What do I mean by that? I mean that if you're only there for a couple of minutes at a time, you're only going to get one piece of it. You're not going to see everything in its totality. And what I saw at Cap Hill was that during the day, it was largely peaceful as long as you weren't dissenting. What do I mean by dissenting? A Christian street preacher came in at one point. He was forcefully removed. They actually put him in a chokehold at one point and dragged him out. I spoke to him with an exclusive interview. I also saw people coming in waving American flags. They were attacked, their flags were stolen, and they were taken out. But beyond that, for the majority of people, as long as they were not dissenting with any of the open source narratives that were going on there at the time, they were perfectly fine. But at nighttime, and this is key, when nighttime came, and this is a big reason of why going undercover like we did over the weekend, over those 72 hours, was so important. When they didn't think anybody was watching, when they didn't think the cameras were rolling, that's when we would see anarchy. That's when we would see violence. We would see fighting. We saw looting at one point. There was attempted looting at an auto shop nearby. The assailant was actually held at gunpoint. The police didn't come. The mob actually ran down to this auto shop. I've got the whole thing on film, tore down the gate into the auto yard, and actually they had an AR-15. One of the employees of this place was the only thing that was able to keep the mob from running in and smashing everything up. That thief later was chased down at gunpoint by Roz, who's sort of this self-appointed warlord. We've seen videos of him handing out AR-15s throughout the area. And at one point, actually, one of my colleagues who was with me from Scriber News was actually assaulted for filming at night. And I understand that he has filed a police report, and if need be, I'm willing to go and testify for him. Everyone else who was also there can provide corroborative testimony. So the narrative battles that we're sort of seeing, one side saying that it's a peaceful protest, the other side pointing out that there's issues of violence plus a lack of medical care and a lack of access to emergency services. This is something that the city has actually been struggling to address. Even when I was there on the ground, I saw 2 people have to be taken out by ambulance. This was a potential OD situation from combining alcohol and drugs. But the ambulances weren't even able to access the occupied Capitol Hill area because of the barricades that were set up. This is something that Mayor Jenny Durkan has talked about, and something that Chief Carmen Best has also said is a major reason of why the police should be allowed to go back into their precinct, because there's residents and there's businesses that live there that are not able to be served by that police force.
And throughout the weekend, too, I mean, I was following what you were doing. I was also following Julio Rosas and Shelby Talcott from the Town Hall and the Daily Caller, respectively. And that's what they were saying, too, is that during the day, it is very peaceful. And in fact, I noticed, too, that when you were watching coverage over the weekend, you would see a lot of day shots. If, for example, I was watching Fox News, and they played a live shot during the day where the reporter said that it's a mostly peaceful protest, but he left out exactly what you're talking about, that at night, there are these violent situations that take place. And there's another thing that you mentioned, too, and it's the idea that there are a lot of overdose situations that we've seen, or at least people on drugs, and that's not only scary for the people in the surrounding area, but for those individuals themselves. I mean, a lot of times I saw people calling for medics on a person who was unconscious on the ground, and that's problematic for that individual within itself. So was there a police force at all? And you mentioned that some ambulances weren't able to get in either. How are they dealing with those individuals?
So what they have set up is this sort of quasi-medical staff, volunteers, that's working in concert with the Antifa group John Brown Gun Club, who's running security at the checkpoints and running security patrols, armed patrols throughout the occupied zone. These medics is essentially, we don't know what their credentials are. We don't know who they are. They're telling us not to film them. They were very angry if you put any of them on camera. They're just kind of kids running around with red tape on their shirts, telling you that they're medics, but not really providing very much in the way of actual medical care. I mean, they have essential first aid kits like bandages and antiseptic, but nothing in terms of actual emergency care, first responder care that you would need. And typically, if you were going to something that was a street festival, you would actually have EMTs on site because, of course, it's the middle of summer. People pass out from heat exhaustion. People pass out from, having a little bit too much to drink. There's all sorts of reasons that during the summertime you'd want a fully staffed medical tent. They don't have that there. Also, the ambulances aren't able to get in. They're not able to arrive in that area. And to your point as well, we're also seeing the homeless population be kind of attracted to this area. On the very first day that I was there, I saw a homeless guy running around slashing a machete in midair. I have no idea where he found a machete, but he was simply just running around the field while everybody was sort of sitting around talking peacefully and slashing it, in some cases slashing very close to them, with them not even paying attention to what was going on. He later ran off and we were able to disarm him, but this is a huge problem and a massive blind spot that they have there. And if you're someone who's just sort of filming from a fixed location around the edges of this thing, I think that a lot of the media outlets that are doing that aren't going undercover, that aren't spending the time inside, are missing a lot of what's going on the inside.
No, and I can't appreciate what you did either. I mean, you embedded yourself in that area for 72 hours. You gave us an inside look of what's going on. And I think it is a bizarre situation, but that doesn't mean that these people's lives aren't any more important, I mean, we did see a lot of people in there with mental illness, with drug addiction, that aren't getting the treatment that they use. And it seems like they're just out there essentially having a free-for-all at this time and not getting the ambulances that they need, not getting the police that they need. It is a scary situation for those on the ground. And I mean, I can't thank you again for once again going there and reporting back and saying exactly what happened. Jack Posobiec, I appreciate you coming on tonight. Thank you.
Of course, Alex.